I came to New Zealand in 1976 as a political refugee. I was in 1973 was a military coup in my country led by General Pinochet, and thousands of people were killed and put in concentration camps. I was arrested in a group of 8 people about 2 weeks after the coup. I was in jail, tortured for 6 days. 2 of my friends died in the tortures, and then I was sent to a concentration camp for a year. After 1 year, I was allowed to go home, but not out of my house. 2 weeks later, they allowed me to go out of my house, but I had to sign the police station twice a week. We prepared a plan. We signed on Saturday morning, and on Saturday night, we were in Argentina. We were a sick political refugee, and I was there for 2 years in a refugee camp before being allowed and accepted to come to New Zealand. I arrived in New Zealand on the 26th of November, 1976. When I was accepted to come to New Zealand as a refugee, to be honest, I didn't know where I was coming from. I was lucky that I was alive in Argentina and very privileged to be accepted in New Zealand. I arrived in New Zealand not knowing anything about this country, English, the culture, or anything. For a refugee, it's extremely difficult for the first few years to adapt to the New Zealand society. There's nothing wrong with New Zealand society, they're very welcoming, but the language is a huge barrier. And also costumes that we have in other countries are not the same costume that people have in New Zealand, so it takes a long time to get on with New Zealand society. I was very privileged to meet a group of people where I work, and they look after me really well. I arrived in New Zealand on a Tuesday afternoon, and the following Monday I was at work. And it's difficult for a refugee to find your way. Like I was living in Newtown and I had to come to Petone, so I had to get buses and train. No one teaches us what to do, how to do it. So sometimes I ended up in Paraparaumo or Porirua, but that's how you learn. I think one of the best things that happened to me as a refugee, that I wasn't here on my own, was other countrymen as well as refugees. So we usually get together on the weekends and eat our food and play soccer and talk about how we can better our life. It takes a long time for a refugee to get used to here, especially at my young age. When I was in the concentration camp, I was only 17 years of age. So I lost my family very early, and it was extremely difficult for me to come here so far away and not having any family, my parents, my brothers, my mom, with me. But you manage. I wasn't allowed to get back to my country for 13 years because of the way I escaped from Chile. I was in a list there. I was not allowed to enter Chile, and if I were, I'd probably be arrested. So in 1987, the government gave an amnesty to many refugees around the world, allowed them to go to Chile. I went back there for the first time in 1988 as a member of the New Zealand cycling team to ride the Tour of Chile, which is a 15-day cycle tour up and down the country. So that was the very first time that I went back to Chile and see my parents, my mom, my brother that wasn't little, was a lot older by now, and see so many relations that I've never seen for many years. And being in my country was a huge experience for me again after being here for so long. Cycling has been a big part of my life. I've always been racing. When I arrived in New Zealand, I started racing with a local club in Wellington, the Port Nicholson Puneke. I race in many places around New Zealand. Going to race in my country, the very same race that I used to see when I was a little kid at school was a huge experience for me, racing against people from different countries. I really enjoyed that race, but more than the race for me was going back home to my parents. And yeah, after this I came back to New Zealand and I keep racing, and I was a manager of many New Zealand national teams overseas. And then I started running cycle races in New Zealand, which I still do until today. I've been running bike races for the last 32 years, and over the years I have been privileged to be recognized in many ways. Like I won the Sports Person of the Year in Wellington Awards 3 times. I got the Sports Person of the Year in Wairarapa a couple of years ago, which was a big privilege. I got a phone call one day from someone from the government saying to me they've been nominated for the Queen's Awards Order of Merit. I didn't have any idea what it was, and they asked me whether I will accept it. And I said, yeah, I accept it. So I did some research, and I found out what it was. And to me, as a Chilean, a political refugee, and coming here with nothing to be recognized by the government was, I was very happy. My family in Chile was very happy, and I think was good, to be recognized after so many years of working really hard. I also, funny enough, I've been the only Chilean ever to receive such an award or recognition. Masterton accepting refugees to come here next year, I think is a very good opportunity for any refugee to come to Masterton. Over here, the refugees is going to come from a country in which they could be in a refugee camp, struggling, obviously financially, freedom. They don't have any money, they don't have works. Who knows the condition they live in right now? And they're going to come to such a beautiful region of Wairarapa in Masterton and New Zealand that everything for them is going to be new. They probably come with their families, their little children. Over here, we got so many good things the other countries or those refugees had never seen. Seeing the New Zealanders take it for granted, like open the tap and have fresh water, having a shower with hot water, going to the supermarket and be able to buy what you need, having a job, going to a swimming pool, have public park for the children. Everything is here is so good for families. There are a lot of New Zealanders, especially the ones who never been overseas, don't realize how good it is. So for me, as a refugee and experience all of it, I think whoever's come to Masterton from which country, in any country they come from, they're going to be very, very happy. When I arrive in New Zealand as a refugee, sometimes I feel people look at me sideways, but that's got a lot to do with the language and no understanding what other people means. Sometimes people say something and I talk it the wrong way, but I didn't mean that way. I think the Wairarapa community or Masterton people, they don't have to worry about the refugees. They are people like us, struggling, and they need some support. I think if you see a refugee in the city trying to work something else, like getting money out of a money machine, or trying to get a bus, or trying to do something they don't know how to do it, I'm sure people here will go and help them. That's all they need, just to be guided at the beginning, because like I say, a lot of the things they're going to see here in New Zealand and in Masterton, they've probably never seen it before, and it takes a long time to get used to. Not just for the trauma they've been through, but to adapt to another country and finding a job, paying for rent, finding a house, looking after the children. So the community can get behind and help them in any way they can. Sometimes we got stuff that we don't use. Refugees will need it because they will come here with nothing. So it's a lot we can do for them. To be a refugee, I don't think, when I was a young boy, I was going to school and I was hoping to go to university or to follow a career for myself in the long run. I don't think anybody in the world is born and wanting to become a refugee. One of the worst parts of being a refugee for myself is over here, I'm the Chilean refugee. I go back home every year, and the New Zealand, the guy who lives in New Zealand. So I neither belong here or there. So it's extremely difficult to be a refugee. Nobody wants to be a refugee, but refugees are part of what society creates in their own countries. Political problems, or you don't have to be a political refugee. You could be economic refugee, or for religion, or many reasons to be a refugee. So it's extremely difficult to be called a refugee in the beginning. But right now, myself, I don't have any problem with becoming a refugee because we come here to work. I've proven myself that I'm one of a New Zealander now. I've been here longer than in my country. If something that I regret is because what happens to me, I was never a Chilean in my own country. I would love to be a Chilean in my country and get up and go to work and do things the Chileans do every day, even with the struggle. I didn't do this, but I got a better option and I come here, which I grew up a really good, very nice family. I got my children, my wife, I got my grandchildren, and I got two brothers in Auckland, in which we are allowed and able to provide for their parents in Chile. So I didn't want to be a refugee, but being accepted as a refugee in New Zealand, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.